Michael John pressed send on his fourth email of the hour, the blue glow of his phone screen washing over his face. 10:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and he sat alone in his corner office on the 42nd floor. Below him, the city sparkled with holiday lights, families heading home from dinners he'd never attend. Around him, silence, the kind that comes when every employee with sense has left hours ago. He rubbed his eyes. The numbers on the screen blurred, then refocused, then blurred again. Michael stood, gripping the edge of his desk harder than necessary. The room tilted. Just need coffee. That's all. He'd been running on 3 hours of sleep for the past week. Maybe 4? He couldn't remember anymore. The Synergy Global merger couldn't wait for weakness. Rest was for people without $100 million deals closing in 72 hours. He made it to the elevator. Made it through the lobby. The night security guard called out something. Merry Christmas, probably. But Michael's ears were ringing too loudly to hear. The cold air hit him like a wall. Snow fell in gentle spirals, coating the deserted downtown sidewalk in white. His designer coat did nothing against the chill creeping into his bones. Or was that chill coming from inside him? 20 steps from his car. He could see it. 15 steps. His vision tunneled. 10 steps. His legs gave out. Michael John, CEO of Synergy Global, collapsed face-first onto the frozen concrete. Snow continued to fall, indifferent to the man who'd spent the last decade building an empire but forgot to build a life. The street remained empty. An ambulance would never find him here. His phone, still clutched in his hand, buzzed once with another work email, then went dark. Just as consciousness began slipping away, footsteps. A woman's voice, sharp with alarm. "Oh my God! Sir? Sir? Can you hear me?" Hands, warm, capable hands, rolled him onto his back. Through the haze, Michael saw a face hovering above his. Blonde hair pulled back, blue scrubs beneath an open winter coat, eyes that radiated both professional assessment and genuine concern. "Stay with me," she commanded, fingers pressed to his neck checking his pulse. "What's your name?" He tried to answer. His mouth wouldn't cooperate. The woman glanced around the empty street, then back at him, making a calculation. She pulled out her phone, started to dial 911, then stopped. Her eyes darted to his gray pallor, his shallow breathing. She swore under her breath. No time. She pocketed her phone and hooked her arms under his. "Okay, billionaire, judging by that watch, you're about to get a very undignified ride to the ER." Michael barely registered being dragged. The world spun. Somewhere in the chaos, he heard her grunting with effort, muttering a stream of words that included, "Why are men so heavy?" and "There goes Christmas dinner." His last coherent thought before everything went black. "I'm going to die on Christmas Eve, and the only person who'll notice is a stranger in scrubs." Beeping. Steady, rhythmic beeping. Michael's eyes cracked open to harsh fluorescent lights softened by strings of fairy lights wound around the window frame. A hospital room. Private from the looks of it. His body ached everywhere, but he was alive. "Welcome back." The voice came from his left. The same woman from the street sat in a chair beside his bed, still in her blue scrubs, reviewing a chart. Up close, exhausted but alert, she looked younger than he'd first thought. Maybe early 30s. Her name tag read, Alice Smith, RN. "You collapsed from severe exhaustion," she said, setting down the chart and meeting his eyes directly. "Your blood pressure was in the danger zone, you were dehydrated, and according to your initial workup, you haven't had a proper meal or full night's sleep in weeks, possibly months." Michael tried to sit up. His arms shook. "Yeah, don't do that yet." Alice stood, gently but firmly pressing his shoulder back against the pillow. "You're on in 4, and you need to stay horizontal until we're sure you're stable." "I have to." His voice came out as a rasp. "Work. There's a merger. There's nothing." Alice interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. That's more important than the fact that you almost died tonight, on a sidewalk, alone. The words hit harder than they should have. Michael looked away toward the window. Snow still fell outside, the fairy lights casting soft shadows across the room. How did I get here? I dragged you. Alice sat back down, crossing her arms. Well, dragged you to my car, then drove like a maniac to the ER. You're surprisingly heavy for someone who apparently doesn't eat. Despite everything, Michael felt a strange impulse to smile. Thank you. You're welcome. She paused, something shifting in her expression. Less clinical, more human. You scared me out there. I thought I was going to lose you before I even got you in the car. Why? The question came out before Michael could stop it. Why did you help me? You could have just called 911. Alice studied him for a long moment, her green eyes unreadable. Because I'm a nurse and I took an oath. But also, she leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Because I looked at you lying there, and all I could think was, here's a man who's been running so hard from something that he forgot to stop before running himself into the ground. She reached over and adjusted his fore with practiced efficiency. Also, I have a strict rule against letting people die alone on Christmas Eve. Bad for holiday spirit. You missed something. Because of me. Michael didn't know why he said it, but suddenly it felt important to know. Alice's expression flickered. Something sad and resigned crossing her features before she masked it. My family's Christmas dinner. They're 3 hours away. Last bus left at 10 o'clock. She shrugged, but Michael caught the weight behind it. They'll understand. They always do. The guilt hit him like a physical blow. This woman, this stranger, had sacrificed her Christmas for him. Had literally saved his life, and he didn't even know her last name an hour ago. I'll pay you, he said, reflexively reaching for the only language he knew. Whatever you want. Mr. John. Alice's voice went cold. She stood, putting professional distance between them. I didn't save your life for money. I saved it because that's what I do. And frankly, she fixed him with a look that made him feel more exposed than any business rival ever had. If your first instinct after someone pulls you back from the edge is to throw cash at them, that tells me everything I need to know about why you were lying on that sidewalk in the first place. She moved toward the door, then paused, her hand on the frame. Get some rest, Mr. John. Actual rest. Not the kind where you answer emails with one eye open. Your body just gave you a warning. Next time, you might not get one. Alice left, the door closing softly behind her. Michael lay in the hospital bed, surrounded by fairy lights and the smell of antiseptic, and realized something terrifying. For the first time in a decade, he had absolutely no idea what to do next, and the only person who seemed to see that was a nurse who'd just walked out of the room. Outside, snow continued to fall on Christmas Eve, and somewhere in this hospital, Alice Smith returned to her rounds, leaving Michael John alone with the deafening silence of his own life. Michael's eyes opened to an assault of fluorescent brightness, sterile white walls closing in around him. For a moment, he couldn't place where he was. Then the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the antiseptic smell brought reality crashing back. Christmas Day. The ICU. His body had finally staged its rebellion. Through the fog of sedatives, he noticed fairy lights twinkling by the window, their cheerful glow absurdly out of place against the clinical backdrop. Someone had tried to bring holiday warmth into this cold space. Mr. John. The voice was soft but firm. He turned his head to find Alice standing beside his bed, checking the fore-drip with practiced efficiency. Her face held that same expression he'd seen before, professional concern layered over something deeper, something almost like compassion. Your vitals are stabilizing, but you gave us quite a scare. Michael reached instinctively for his usual armor. Whatever it costs. Double your fee, triple it. Just get me out of here by tomorrow. Alice's hand stilled on the chart. She met his eyes with a directness that made him uncomfortable. "Mr. John, you didn't collapse because of a sudden illness. Your body shut down from months of neglect. No amount of money changes that diagnosis." The words hit harder than any business setback. He'd faced hostile boards, cutthroat competitors, market crashes, but this quiet rejection of his most reliable tool left him defenseless. "I should mention," Alice added, gathering her supplies, "I was supposed to be at my family's Christmas dinner tonight. My niece turns 5 today." She paused at the doorway, her smile sad but genuine. "But someone needed to make sure you made it through yours." The door closed softly behind her, and Michael lay alone with an unfamiliar sensation spreading through his chest. Guilt. Real, uncomfortable, unquantifiable guilt. For the first time in decades, someone had given him something his billions couldn't purchase, and he had no idea how to repay it. The laptop arrived by courier at 6 a.m. Michael had it open within minutes, fielding emails about the Singapore expansion while his breakfast tray sat untouched. The morphine dulled the pain but sharpened his focus, or so he told himself. Alice walked in during his third conference call. Without a word, she plucked the phone from his hand and ended the call with a decisive tap. "Ms. Chun." "Dr. Chun," she corrected, powering down the laptop. "And you're going to rest or I'll have you sedated. Your choice." Michael stared at her, incredulous. Nobody had dared. "Talk to me instead," Alice said, settling into the chair beside his bed. "Tell me what's so important it's worth dying for." So he talked. About quarterly projections and market dominance, about the thrill of a successful acquisition, the elegant brutality of a perfectly executed merger. His words painted empires built on spreadsheets and sealed with signatures worth millions. Alice listened without judgment, then spoke of her own world, the quiet satisfaction of easing someone's pain, her cramped apartment with its view of a brick wall, Sunday dinners where her nephews fought over who got to sit beside her. Wealth measured in laughter, not zeros. "You know what I remember most from that first night?" Alice's voice softened. "You looked up at me with this absolute terror in your eyes. Not the pain, the realization that you were going to die alone. That all those spreadsheets wouldn't hold your hand." The words landed like a physical blow. Michael turned away, jaw clenched against the truth of it. "I don't know how to stop," he whispered finally, the admission scraping his throat raw. Alice reached over and took his hand, warm, steady, real. "Then I'll teach you." In the sterile quiet of the ICU, surrounded by machines monitoring his failing body, Michael felt something shift. Her fingers intertwined with his, and for the first time in decades he wasn't alone. Christmas morning arrived with unusual quiet. The ICU's constant urgency had dimmed to a low hum, most emergencies resolved or transferred. Alice appeared with 2 plates, each bearing a sad slice of institutional Christmas cake, dry as cardboard, dusted with optimistic frosting. "The cafeteria's finest," she said with mock solemnity, handing him one. "Fair warning. It tastes like regret and food coloring." Michael took a bite and nearly laughed. It was awful, but sitting there with her, sharing this terrible dessert while machines beeped their steady rhythm, felt like the best meal he'd had in years. "My father," Michael said suddenly, surprising himself, "worked himself into an early grave, heart attack at 52, right at his desk." He stared at the cake crumbling in his fingers. "I swore I'd never be like him. Poor, powerless, forgotten. So I became exactly like him, just with a bigger office." Alice set down her plate. "And now I'm in a hospital bed. And the only person who stayed was someone I can't even pay properly for her time." "About that," Alice said quietly, "I'm drowning in student loans. Been taking extra shifts to save for a teaching degree. I want to train new nurses, give back somehow. My family helps when they can, but..." She shrugged. "Money's always tight. But watching my nephew blow out his birthday candles over video chat tonight? That's worth more than any overtime pay. The contrast struck him silent. She had so little, yet gave so freely. He had everything, yet had nearly died with nothing that mattered. "Thank you," Michael said, and meant it. Not as a billionaire accustomed to service, but as a man genuinely grateful. "When they discharge me, would you visit? Not as my doctor, as—" he hesitated. "As someone I'd like to know better." Alice's smile reached her eyes. "I'd like that, Mr. John." "Michael," he corrected softly. "Just Michael." The penthouse felt like a mausoleum. Michael stood in the center of his living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, minimalist furniture that had never been sat on. Silence so profound it pressed against his eardrums. The hospital had been warmer. He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then typed, "Coffee tomorrow?" Alice's response came quickly. "I know a place. I'll send the address." The place turned out to be a bistro in her neighborhood. Nothing like the Michelin-starred establishments Michael had planned to impress her with. He'd arrived early, reserved a private room at Maria, arranged for his driver. "Michael." Alice appeared beside his town car, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. "What are you doing?" You thought you'd turn this into a business meeting?" She shook her head, amused. "Cancel whatever you've planned. We're getting coffee. Just coffee." The bistro was cramped and loud, the espresso bitter, the pastries ordinary. Michael kept trying to steer conversation towards safe territory, recent economic trends, the healthcare industry's challenges. Alice kept steering it back. "Tell me something you loved as a child." She interrupted his analysis of hospital administration costs. "I don't remember much from childhood." "Then tell me something that made you smile this week. Besides your stock portfolio." He came up empty. Alice reached across the small table. "Here's my condition, Michael. You want to see me again? You schedule downtime. Real downtime. And you keep those fairy lights from your hospital room. Hang them somewhere you'll see them every day. A reminder." "Of what?" "Of the night you almost died, and chose to start living instead." That evening, Michael did something unprecedented. He delegated 3 major projects, blocked out his weekends, and hung the fairy lights in his home office. They looked ridiculous against the stark modernism. But standing there, watching them twinkle, Michael smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time in years. The year unfolded in moments Michael had never imagined living. Smoke alarms shrieking while he incinerated pasta, Alice laughing so hard she couldn't breathe, her acceptance letter to the nursing education program, funded by an anonymous scholarship he'd established for healthcare workers. Sunday dinners with her family, her nephew teaching him to play video games with the patients usually reserved for the elderly. Michael learned the names of his doormen, started reading fiction, discovered he liked jazz. One December evening, sorting through boxes in Alice's apartment, he found them, the fairy lights from his hospital room, carefully wrapped and labeled. His throat tightened. "I kept them," Alice said from the doorway. "In case you forgot." "I haven't forgotten anything." Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow. Michael led Alice through familiar streets, her hand warm in his, until they reached the corner where he'd collapsed exactly 1 year ago. Someone had strung lights through the trees, transforming the spot into something magical. "This is where it happened," he said quietly. "Where I stopped having a life and started living one." Alice squeezed his hand. "You saved me that night," Michael continued, turning to face her. "But you save me every day. From meetings that don't matter, from success that feels like failure, from becoming the ghost my father was." He pulled out a small box. "This belonged to my mother. The only thing she had that meant something. The ring was simple, a single sapphire, unpretentious and perfect. Marry me, Alice. Not the billionaire, not the CEO. Marry the man you taught to stop. Yes? She whispered, tears catching the light. Yes. Christmas dinner at her sister's house was chaos. Children everywhere. Too many voices. Not enough chairs. Michael stood to give a toast, his voice thick with emotion. To the family who welcomed a workaholic stranger. To second chances. To the nurse who prescribed the one thing money couldn't buy, a reason to live. Alice's hand found his beneath the table, and Michael realized, finally, what wealth actually meant.